A wedding in Colmar in 2025, huh? Talk about fairy tale vibes. Yeah, cobblestone streets, those adorable houses. But, okay, amidst all that magic, we know there's a ton to plan.
Right. Gotta love those logistics.
So we did a deep dive on all your research, budgeting, vendor intel, all that good stuff, to help make this whole journey a breeze.
And honestly, it's fascinating how often the practical stuff intertwines with the dreamy stuff when it comes to a destination wedding. For example, your research really emphasizes that nailing down your budget isn't just about numbers, it's about shaping your whole Colmar experience.
Oh, absolutely. One source even mentioned that destination weddings in places like Colmar often have a hidden charm cost. Think like those horse-drawn carriage rides, those extra special wine tastings for your guests.
Exactly, all those little extras that make it unique but can really add up if you're not prepared.
Totally. And speaking of unique touches, your research highlighted that Colmar's venue scene is incredibly diverse. You got everything from restaurants on cobblestone streets to grand chateau. I mean, come on, it's like straight out of a storybook.
It is. But that fairy tale charm can sometimes come with a hefty price tag, which is why your sources wisely suggested having a separate budget line just for venue sourcing in Colmar. Apparently, couples often fall in love with a place that's outside their initial budget.
Yeah, that tracks. Flexibility is key, especially if you stumble upon like a hidden gem during your research.
Mm.
And speaking of which, you're getting married in 2025, right? Perfect timing. Your research mentioned the Salon de Mirage in Colmar.
Happening January 2025.
Huh.
It's like a gold mine for couples. You can see potential venues firsthand, connect with local vendors. Your sources stressed how invaluable that face-to-face interaction can be.
Oh, for sure. It's like one-stop shopping for your Colmar wedding dreams. Did your research say anything about the types of vendors you might encounter at the salon? Or just in Colmar in general?
Yeah, definitely. One article I saw highlighted this difference between vendors who cater specifically to destination weddings and those who mainly serve the local market.
Interesting. So, for a couple like ours, what's the key difference to keep in mind?
Well, the article said that both types of vendors can be fantastic, of course, but those who specialize in destination weddings might have more experience with, say, language barriers or those subtle cultural nuances.
Which are super important for a destination wedding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to get lost in translation when it comes to your big day.
Exactly. Now, while the salon is fantastic, your research also really emphasized doing your own homework.
Always a good idea.
One source even recommended creating a spreadsheet to keep track of everything. Vendor pricing, availability, whether they have experience with English-speaking clients, that kind of thing.
Love the organization. And speaking of being organized, we got to talk about the guest list, right?
Right, because your dream venue might not be so dreamy if it can only hold half your guests.
True, true.
One source gave some super practical advice, though. Create a preliminary guest list, categorize everyone by how must-have they are, and then factor in potential travel costs, too.
Which makes sense. Colmar sounds incredible, but it's also a big ask for guests, especially those flying in from overseas.
Exactly. Balancing those guest list dreams with the reality of a destination wedding is key. And that actually links right back to the budget discussion we were having earlier.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this. Tell me more.
Well, one article mentioned that a common mistake couples make is forgetting to factor in guest experience costs, things like welcome bags with local goodies, or even organizing a group activity. Those can add up if you've got a big guest list.
That's a really good point. So easy to overlook those things when you're busy thinking about venues and dresses.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of dresses, how about we move on to the fun stuff? Your wedding's theme and overall style.
Yes. This is where your Colmar wedding vision really starts to come to life, right?
Yeah.
What insights did our listeners' research dig up?
Your research really emphasized how the magic of Colmar itself can actually inspire your theme.
Oh, I like that.
Like, are you drawn to the cozy fairy tale vibes of Old Town? Or maybe those vineyard landscapes for something more rustic chic?
Ooh, I love that. Letting the location itself guide your choices.
Mm.
Did any of the sources give like specific theme examples that would work well in Colmar?
Yeah, one article suggested a timeless romance theme,
Okay.
playing up Colmar's historical architecture with elegant attire and vintage-inspired details. It even mentioned things like calligraphy on handmade paper,
Ooh.
echoing the city's artisan traditions.
So beautiful and so Colmar. It's like those little details that really transport your guests to another place.
Exactly. And speaking of transporting guests, the research also touched on a really interesting point about attire. Colmar's cobblestone streets.
Oh, right.
One source recommended really factoring in footwear that's both stylish and practical.
It's huge. You don't want to be like struggling in stilettos on those charming but uneven streets.
No, definitely not. The article actually suggested thinking about the overall Colmar aesthetic when you're choosing attire.
Ew.
For brides, it mentioned flowy silhouettes and lace details that would complement the romantic architecture. So dreamy. And for grooms and wedding parties, any specific Colmar-inspired style tips there?
For a more formal feel, tailored suits in classic colors like navy or charcoal would be stunning.
Yeah.
But if you're going for a more relaxed vibe, linen shirts and lighter fabrics, maybe even incorporating a touch of color.
Ooh, I can picture it now. A groom in a linen suit, vineyard backdrop. Picture perfect.
Absolutely. And don't forget, the Salon de Mariage is a fantastic opportunity to connect with local designers and boutiques. You might even discover a hidden gem that just specializes in that Colmar-inspired wedding attire.
Love it. Okay, so we got the theme, the attire. What about those all-important details like invitations, especially for a destination wedding? Those really set the stage for the whole experience.
Definitely. One source recommended using the invitations to give your guests a little sneak peek of Colmar's charm. Like, think about incorporating watercolor illustrations of iconic landmarks, or even a custom map highlighting key locations. I love that. It's like giving them a little piece of Colmar before they even arrive. Did any of the sources have suggestions on, like, the wording? Especially for guests who might not be familiar with destination weddings.
Yeah, one article suggested including a separate Colmar information card with the invitations.
Oh, smart.
It could include things like travel tips, local customs, or even just a few basic French phrases to help guests navigate the city.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
Such a thoughtful touch. And speaking of being thoughtful, save the dates are absolutely crucial for a destination wedding, right?
Oh, yeah.
People need ample time to plan trips, especially if they're traveling internationally.
Big time. One source even recommended sending out save the dates at least like 9 to 12 months in advance,
Yeah.
especially if you're going for a peak season wedding in Colmar.
Which, let's be honest, who wouldn't want a spring or summer wedding amidst those flower-filled balconies and those charming streets? But that also probably means you might be competing with other couples for venues and vendors.
For sure. That's why, sending out those save the dates early gives your guests a heads up and also helps you gauge how many people are actually likely to attend.
Smart. Okay, so we've covered the theme, the attire, the invites. Now, we're going to have to talk about the logistical side of things, right?
We do.
Because even the dreamiest Colmar wedding requires a little bit of planning.
This is true, but it doesn't have to be a chore. It's more like choreography,
Oh.
making sure your special day flows smoothly from start to finish.
I love that analogy, wedding planning as choreography. And speaking of flow, one thing that always stands out to me at weddings is the ceremony itself. Any insights from the research on planning a ceremony that truly captures the magic of Colmar?
Definitely. One of the articles emphasized choosing a ceremony location that really resonates with both of you as a couple.
Okay.
It could be a historic church, a charming courtyard, or even, get this, a scenic spot overlooking the vineyards.
Okay, stop right there. A ceremony overlooking the vineyards. Talk about a fairy tale backdrop.
Right. And if you're open to incorporating some local traditions, your research mentioned that having a string quartet play traditional Alsatian music during your ceremony is a beautiful way to infuse some local flavor.
Okay, I'm getting chills just picturing it. It's those special touches that really make a destination wedding so unique. But after that magical ceremony, you've got to keep the party going, which brings us to the reception.
Yes. And your research highlighted something that I think often gets overlooked, which is the flow of a destination wedding reception.
Okay.
Because your guests might be coming from all over, it's especially important to create that really welcoming and inclusive atmosphere.
So what does that look like, practically speaking?
One source recommended incorporating things that encourage mingling and conversation. Things like interactive food stations,
Fun.
a photo booth with Colmar-themed props, or even, and this is my favorite, a traditional Alsatian dance lesson.
Okay, I absolutely love that idea. A dance lesson would be so much fun and a great way to break the ice for guests who might not all know each other.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of keeping things flowing, one article offered this, brilliant tip. Consider having a cocktail hour immediately following the ceremony, but before the main reception.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. It gives everyone a chance to, catch their breath, enjoy some refreshments, and maybe explore the venue or the surrounding area a bit.
Exactly. It provides this natural buffer between the ceremony and the reception. And it also gives you and your partner some time to, like, capture those stunning Colmar wedding photos without feeling rushed.
Which, let's be honest, those photos are going to be incredible. You can't take a bad photo in Colmar.
So true. And speaking of capturing those memories, have you thought about videography at all?
Oh, that's a good point. Video brings those moments to life in a way that photos sometimes can't. Any Colmar-specific videographer recommendations from our listeners' research?
No specific names were mentioned, but one article suggested looking for videographers who specialize in destination weddings and who have experience actually filming in Colmar. They highlighted that it's important to find someone who can capture not only the beauty of the day, but also the unique atmosphere and charm of your location.
Totally. You want someone who really understands the magic of Colmar and can, like, translate that into a timeless wedding video. Now, we've talked about a lot of moving parts here, from the ceremony to the reception, the photos, the videos. How do you keep it all running smoothly on the actual day?
That's where the magic of a day of coordinator comes in, right?
Yes.
Remember, we were talking about that earlier.
Yes.
Your research could not stress their importance enough, especially for a destination wedding in a place like Colmar.
Okay, so walk us through it. Why is a day of coordinator so essential in this scenario?
So, for starters, they act as your advocate and liaison with all your vendors, making sure everyone's on the same page and that everything's running according to schedule. This is especially crucial if there are any language barriers.
That's huge. The last thing you want to be doing on your wedding day is trying to track down, like, the florist or explain the seating chart in broken French.
Exactly. Plus, they handle any of those unexpected hiccups that might pop up. Imagine a sudden change in the weather, a vendor running late, or even just like a missing bouquet. A day of coordinator swoops in, handles it discreetly, and allows you to stay focused on enjoying your day.
Okay, they really do sound like superheroes.
Yeah.
But seriously, that peace of mind is priceless, especially for a destination wedding where you might not be as familiar with the local customs or resources.
Absolutely. And your research actually suggested that in Colmar, where a lot of the venues are historical buildings with unique layouts, a day of coordinator can be even more valuable just in making sure everything runs smoothly.
Oh, that makes sense. They know the lay of the land, so to speak. Any tips on actually finding a good day of coordinator in Colmar?
One article recommended reaching out to your chosen venue first, as they often have preferred vendors they work with regularly.
Great idea. Plus, it probably makes the whole planning process smoother if everyone's already familiar with each other, right?
Exactly. Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, from the big picture stuff to those finer details that make a Colmar wedding unique.
We have.
What final words of wisdom would you offer our listener as they continue on their planning journey?
I think, honestly, the biggest takeaway here is to, really embrace the magic of Colmar. It's such a unique place.
It really is.
And those unexpected moments, those little touches of charm, those are the things that are going to make your wedding truly unforgettable.
Absolutely. Those are the best parts.
One of your sources even suggested creating a Colmar bucket list for you and your guests to really enhance that whole destination experience.
I love that.
So think a stroll along the canals an afternoon,
Yeah.
exploring those local markets, or even a wine tasting in a nearby village.
Oh, so fun. It's like extending the wedding celebration beyond just the big day itself. Exactly. And speaking of celebrations, remember that your wedding, at the end of the day, it's a reflection of you as a couple.
It is.
Don't be afraid to personalize those traditions.
Oh, yeah.
Incorporate special touches, tell your love story, but against the backdrop of beautiful Colmar.
That's such great advice, because it's so easy to get caught up in all those logistics.
Right.
And kind of forget that at its heart, this is about celebrating your love.
It really is.
And, speaking of love and celebration, one thing that always gets me at weddings is the speeches. Any insights from the research on how to make those toasts as memorable as that Colmar setting?
One article suggested weaving in stories or anecdotes that connect back to Colmar itself, like maybe a funny story about how you two got lost exploring the city, or a heartfelt moment you shared over a glass of Alsatian wine.
Oh, I love that.
Even just a simple expression of gratitude for, the beauty that's all around you.
That's so good. It's like you're bringing a piece of Colmar into those speeches, making them even more personal and meaningful. And thinking about those speeches, those moments with loved ones, it reminds me, even though wedding planning can feel all-consuming, it's so important to take time to just enjoy this exciting chapter.
You're so right, because it's so easy to get caught up in those details and forget to, like, actually savor the journey.
It really is. So, amidst all the planning, remember to take those walks along the canals, share those glasses of wine, and just let the magic of Colmar inspire not only your wedding day, but this whole adventure.
Beautifully said. And when the big day arrives, just remember to relax, soak it all in, and trust that all that hard work, all that planning, it's going to pay off.
It will.
You've put so much thought and heart into creating this Colmar fairy tale,
You have.
and now it's time to just enjoy every single magical moment.
I love it. We are so incredibly excited for you. A Colmar wedding that is something truly special,
It really is.
and we cannot wait to hear all about how your fairy tale unfolds.
Yes. Keep us posted, and be sure to share those magical Colmar wedding moments with us on social media.
Absolutely. And until then, happy planning.
Happy planning!
And remember, a little bit of Colmar magic goes a long way.